The text message glowed on Sarah's phone, forgotten on the kitchen counter. Last night was unforgettable. When can we meet again? It was signed E. Mark Thompson's heart stopped. He wasn't the snooping type, but the phone had buzzed while he was making coffee and curiosity got the better of him. 10 years of marriage, countless shared dreams in their Chicago high-rise, and now this, a dagger of betrayal. Mark, 38, a software engineer with a steady life, felt the ground shift beneath him. Who was he? And what was last night? Their apartment in Lincoln Park was a sanctuary, sleek, modern, with a balcony overlooking the city skyline. Sarah, 35, a marketing consultant, was the spark in their relationship, always charming, always busy. But lately she'd been distant, her laughter forced, her evenings filled with vague work dinners. Mark had chalked it up to stress. Now he wasn't so sure. The answer came that evening. From their balcony, Mark noticed their neighbor across the courtyard, Ethan Caldwell, a reclusive writer in his early 40s. Ethan was always there, leaning against his railing, his piercing gaze fixed on their apartment. At first, Mark thought it was just city life, neighbors get curious. But tonight, Ethan's eyes lingered too long, and when Sarah stepped out to water her plants, their glances locked. It wasn't casual. It was intimate. Mark's stomach churned. Ethan, with his brooding demeanor and cryptic smiles, had always seemed off. The guy lived alone, rarely spoke, but his presence was inescapable, always watching, always there. Mark tried to dismiss it, but the text from E burned in his mind. Could Ethan be the one? He confronted Sarah that night, his voice shaking. Who's E? What's going on, Sarah? She froze, her green eyes wide. It's nothing, Mark. A client. You're overreacting. But her trembling hands betrayed her. When Mark pressed, she stormed out claiming she needed air. Desperate for answers, he did something he never imagined. He followed her. Sarah didn't go far. She crossed the courtyard to Ethan's building, slipping inside like she'd done it 100 times. Mark's heart raced as he trailed her, sticking to the shadows. He climbed the fire escape to Ethan's floor, his pulse deafening. Through a half-open curtain, he saw them, Sarah and Ethan, laughing too closely, their hands brushing. It wasn't proof, but it was enough. Betrayal seared through him. Then he saw it, a tripod with a camera on Ethan's balcony angled directly at their apartment. A chill ran down Mark's spine. This wasn't just an affair. Ethan was watching them. Recording them. Why? Mark slipped away, his mind racing with questions. Was Sarah in on it? What was Ethan hiding? Back home, he waited, pretending everything was fine when Sarah returned, her smile brittle. But inside, he was plotting. He'd uncover the truth no matter the cost. The next morning, Mark called in sick. Ethan always left for coffee at 8 a.m., so Mark seized his chance. He slipped into Ethan's building, heart pounding, and found the apartment door unlocked, a careless mistake. Inside, it was a shrine to obsession. Photos of Sarah pinned to a corkboard, her on their balcony, her at the grocery store, even her sleeping through their bedroom window. A laptop sat open, displaying a live feed of their living room. Mark's blood ran cold. This was no fling. It was a calculated invasion. He copied files from Ethan's laptop onto a USB drive, his hands shaking. One folder, labeled The Ledger, caught his eye, but a noise outside forced him to flee. Back home, he opened the drive. The files were encrypted, but one video played, Sarah, on their balcony, talking to Ethan across the courtyard. Her words were inaudible, but her expression was clear, guilty, conflicted. Then, a second figure appeared in the frame, someone Mark didn't recognize, handing Ethan a book. The video cut off. Mark's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. His breath caught. Someone knew he'd been there. Was it Ethan? Or someone else? That night, Sarah didn't come home. Her phone went to voicemail and panic set in. Had she run to Ethan? Or was something worse at play? Mark stared at the USB drive, knowing the answers were inside if he could crack them. As he sat in the dark, a faint scratching sound came from the walls like nails on wood. Their building was old, but this was different. It felt alive. Mark's resolve hardened. He'd expose Ethan, save Sarah if she was in danger, and bring this nightmare to light, legally. But the scratching grew louder, and a whisper followed, "You can't stop it." Mark froze. Was he losing his mind, or was something far darker watching him? The scratching in the walls kept Mark awake, each scrape a taunt from the shadows. It was 2 a.m. and Sarah still hadn't returned. Her phone was off, her office claimed she hadn't shown up, and the USB drive from Ethan's apartment sat on Mark's desk like a ticking bomb. The cryptic text, "Stop digging, or you'll regret it," looped in his mind. Was Ethan watching him now? Or was it someone else? Mark, 38, a software engineer used to solving problems with code. felt out of his depth in this maze of betrayal and secrets. Their Chicago apartment, once a haven, now felt like a trap. The balcony where Sarah used to sip wine under the stars mocked him with memories of her glances at Ethan. Mark's hands trembled as he plugged the USB into his laptop, determined to crack its secrets. The encrypted folder, the ledger, resisted his attempts, but other files revealed more of Ethan's obsession. Timestamps of Sarah's routines, photos of her at a cafe with a man Mark didn't recognize, and a scanned note in Ethan's jagged handwriting. She's the key. The ritual begins soon. Ritual? The word sent a shiver through Mark. Was Sarah a willing participant, or a pawn in something bigger? He needed answers, but confronting Ethan directly was too risky. Instead, he turned to the building's superintendent, Clara, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd worked there for decades. Clara was polishing the lobby's brass fixtures when Mark approached, the faint scratching from the walls echoing in his ears. Clara, ever notice anything strange about Ethan Caldwell? Mark asked, keeping his voice low. Her eyes narrowed, and she set down her rag. That one's trouble, she said. Keeps to himself, but I've seen him sneaking around the basement at odd hours. Once caught him carrying a book. Old, leather-bound, gave me the creeps. Mark's pulse quickened. The book from the video. Any idea what's down there? He pressed. Clara hesitated. Old storage, mostly, but there's a locked room nobody's opened in years. Rumor is the original owner was into some weird stuff, occult nonsense. I don't buy it, but Ethan? He's the type. Mark's mind raced. A locked room, a book, a ritual. He thanked Clara and headed to the basement, armed with a flashlight and a crowbar from his toolbox. The elevator creaked as it descended, the air growing colder. The basement was a labyrinth of dusty crates and flickering lights, but Clara's words led him to a rusted steel door tucked behind a boiler. The lock was new, gleaming against the decay. Someone had been here recently. With a grunt, Mark pried the door open. The stench of mildew hit him, but worse was the sight inside. A concrete room with a chalk-drawn circle on the floor, surrounded by melted candles. In the center sat a leather-bound book, its cover etched with symbols Mark didn't recognize. On a nearby table were photos, some of Sarah, some of Mark, and others of strangers, all with dates scrawled on them, the oldest from 1953. A yellowed newspaper clipping mentioned a tenant who vanished after strange noises in the building. Mark's skin crawled. This wasn't just about Sarah and Ethan. This was history repeating itself. He flipped open the book, its pages brittle. It was a ledger, listing names, dates, and cryptic phrases like, bound by the pact, and the Watcher's demand. Sarah's name was there, dated a month ago, with initiated written beside it. Mark's name was below hers, marked, pending. His heart pounded. Pending what? Before he could read more, footsteps echoed above. He shoved the book into his jacket and slipped out, locking the door behind him. Back in the apartment, Mark's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You took something that isn't yours. Return it or she pays. His blood ran cold. She's Sarah. Was she in danger? Or was this a bluff? He called her again, but it went straight to voicemail. Desperate, he hacked into the building's security footage using his tech skills. Hours of grainy video showed Sarah entering Ethan's apartment the previous night, but she never left. Ethan, however, exited at 3 a.m., carrying a duffel bag. Mark's fear turned to fury. He needed help but couldn't trust the police. Not yet. He reached out to an old college friend, Lena, a private investigator with a knack for digging up dirt. Over coffee at a diner, he spilled everything. Sarah's affair, Ethan's cameras, the basement room, the ledger. Lena's eyes widened, but she stayed calm. Sounds like a cult or some twisted game, she said. I'll tail Ethan, see where he's going. But Mark, don't do anything stupid. If this is bigger than him, you're in deep. That night, the scratching in the walls grew louder, joined by a faint hum, like a chant. Mark clutched the ledger, its weight heavy in his hands. He cracked more files from the USB, revealing emails between Ethan and an unknown contact, the overseer, discussing the next offering. One line chilled him. The husband is close to breaking. He'll join or fall. Join what? Fall how? Mark's paranoia spiked. Was Ethan part of a group? Was Sarah a victim or a conspirator? Lena called at midnight. Ethan's at a warehouse on the south side, she whispered. He's with others. Hooded figures, chanting around a fire. I saw Sarah's car parked outside, but no sign of her. Mark, this is bad. Stay put, I'm calling for backup. But Mark couldn't wait. He grabbed the ledger and a flashlight and drove to the address Lena sent. The warehouse loomed in the dark, its windows boarded up. He crept inside, heart hammering. Cloaked figures stood in a circle, their voices low and rhythmic. Ethan was there, holding the same knife Mark had seen in photos. In the center, a woman knelt, her face hidden. Was it Sarah? Before Mark could move, a hand grabbed him from behind. You shouldn't be here, a voice hissed. It wasn't Ethan, it was the man from the video, the one who'd handed Ethan the book. Mark's vision blurred as a cloth pressed against his face and everything went black. When he woke, he was in his car, parked outside his building. The ledger was gone, but a note was tucked into his pocket, last warning. Bring her back, or you both burn. The scratching in the walls was deafening now, and Mark knew time was running out. Sarah was alive, but for how long? Mark's head throbbed as he gripped the steering wheel, the note's words burning in his mind, last warning. Bring her back, or you both burn. The Chicago skyline loomed beyond his windshield, its lights mocking his unraveling life. Whoever had knocked him out at the warehouse had taken the ledger, leaving him with nothing but fear and questions. Was Sarah still alive? Was she a victim or part of Ethan's twisted game? The scratching in the walls of their Lincoln Park apartment had followed him here, a relentless reminder that something or someone was watching. Back home, Mark scoured the USB drive for clues, his software skills pushed to the limit. He cracked another encrypted file, a grainy video from Ethan's camera showing Sarah in their apartment, unaware she was being recorded. She was on the phone, her voice low. I don't know if I can keep this up, she said. Mark starting to suspect. A man's voice, Ethan's, replied, You're in too deep now. The overseer won't let you walk away. The call ended and Sarah's face crumpled, torn between guilt and fear. Mark's heart sank. She was trapped, but how deeply? The video cut to Ethan in the basement, standing before the chalk circle Mark had found. He lit candles, muttering words in a language Mark couldn't place. Shadows moved behind him, not cast by the flames, but alive, writhing like smoke. Mark paused the footage, his breath catching. This wasn't just obsession or infidelity. Ethan was entangled in something supernatural, something tied to the building's dark history. Mark called Lena, his PI friend, who was shaken but resolute. I followed Ethan after you blacked out, she said over the phone. He's back at the warehouse, but the others are gone. I found something else, a name in public records, Victor Grayson, the building's original owner in the 1920s. He was linked to disappearances rumored to lead a cult. Mark, this might be bigger than we thought. She promised to dig deeper and urged him to stay safe. Sleep was impossible. The scratching in the walls grew rhythmic like a heartbeat. Mark grabbed his crowbar and headed to the basement again, driven by desperation. The steel door was ajar, the lock broken. Inside, the chalk circle was freshly drawn and new candles burned low. A photo of Mark, taken from Ethan's balcony, lay in the center, his face circled in red ink. Beside it was a note, the pact requires balance. One must fall. A noise behind him made Mark spin, crowbar raised. It was Clara, the superintendent, her face pale. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I told you to leave it alone. Mark demanded answers. Reluctantly, Clara confessed. Years ago, I found that book, the ledger, in the basement. I thought it was junk, but Ethan asked about it when he moved in. He knew things, Mark, things about this place nobody should know. He said the building demands a price. What price? Mark snapped. Clara's eyes darted to the shadows. Lives, she said. Every few years, someone disappears. Tenants, visitors, it's always hushed up. I thought it was just stories, but Ethan, he believes it. He thinks he's serving something. Mark's mind reeled. A cult, a curse, a building that fed on its tenants, none of it made sense, yet the evidence was undeniable. He pressed Clara for more, but a loud thud echoed from above. They know you're here, she hissed, then fled. Alone, Mark noticed a faint glow under a loose floorboard. He pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a key, old and ornate, etched with the same symbols as the ledger. Back upstairs, Mark's phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. Ethan's voice, cold and deliberate, you have the key now. Bring it to the warehouse at midnight or Sarah's gone for good. Mark's blood ran cold. The key was his only leverage, but walking into Ethan's trap was suicide. He called Lena, who agreed to meet him near the warehouse with a plan, record everything, gather evidence, and call the police once they had proof. At 11 p.m., Mark parked a block from the south side warehouse. Lena waited in her car, a camera ready. The building was dark, save for a flicker of light inside. Mark clutched the key, his crowbar tucked under his jacket. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and decay. Ethan stood alone in the center, no hooded figures this time. Sarah was there, tied to a chair, her eyes wide with terror. "Mark, I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't know what he was, eh?" "Quiet," Ethan snapped, brandishing the knife from the photos. "You're late, Mark." The overseer's impatient. He gestured to a makeshift altar where the ledger lay open. "The key unlocks the pact. Hand it over and she lives." Mark hesitated, his mind racing. The scratching sound returned, louder, coming from the walls. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision. "Who's the overseer?" he demanded. Ethan's smile was chilling. "Not who, what? This." The text message haunted Mark. "The pact is sealed. You're next." It came from an unknown number, but Ethan's voice echoed in his mind. The Chicago night pressed against the windows of their Lincoln Park apartment, the city's glow no longer a comfort but a reminder of the shadows lurking within. Mark, 38, sat on the couch, Sarah curled up beside him, her face pale and drawn. She hadn't spoken much since the warehouse, her confession of Ethan's manipulation hanging between them like a fragile thread. The scratching in the walls was relentless now, a sinister rhythm that seemed to pulse with their fear. Mark's mind churned. The key he'd found in the basement was gone, stolen during the chaos at the warehouse. The ledger was ash, Lena's footage was useless, and Ethan had vanished. The police had questioned them for hours, but with no evidence, just their word against a missing man, the case was at a dead end. Mark knew better. Ethan wasn't just a neighbor with a camera, he was a cog in something ancient, tied to the building's dark history. And Sarah, knowingly or not, had played a part. "I didn't want this," Sarah whispered, breaking the silence. "Ethan said the Watchers could fix things, our fights, my stress. He showed me that book, those symbols. I thought it was just talk, but then," her voice cracked. "He said if I didn't help, they'd come for me." Mark's anger flared, but pity tempered it. She was scared, manipulated, but her betrayal still stung. "What did he make you do?" he asked, his voice tight. Sarah hesitated. "He had me leave notes, meet him in secret. He said it was to protect us, but I saw things, shadows moving when no one was there. He called them the Watchers, said they've always been here, in the building." Mark's skin crawled. The ledger's cryptic phrases, bound by the pact, the Watchers' demand, suddenly felt too real. Was Ethan serving these shadows, or were they controlling him? Mark's phone buzzed, snapping him back. It was Lena, his PI friend. "I dug into Victor Grayson, the building's original owner," she said, her voice tense. "He wasn't just a cult leader. He was obsessed with rituals, believed this place was built on a conduit, a gateway to something else. Public records show tenants disappearing every decade since the 1920s. Mark, Ethan's real name isn't Caldwell. It's Grayson. He's Victor's great-grandson." The revelation hit like a punch. Ethan wasn't just a random creep, he was continuing a legacy. Mark's thoughts raced to the basement, the chalk circle, the symbols. "Lena, what about the key I found?" he asked. She paused. "I cross-referenced Grayson's old journals, stored in a city archive. That key unlocks something called the Inner Sanctum, a hidden chamber under the building. It's tied to their rituals. You need to find it before Ethan does." Mark hung up, his resolve hardening. He couldn't wait for the police or Lena's next move. He grabbed a flashlight, the crowbar, and a pocket knife, then turned to Sarah. "Stay here. Lock the door." She grabbed his arm, eyes wide. "Don't go down there, Mark. Please. They're watching." He shook her off, the scratching in the walls urging him forward. "I have to end this." The basement was colder than before, the air thick with a metallic tang. The steel door to the ritual room was wide open, as if inviting him. Inside, the chalk circle glowed faintly under his flashlight, and fresh candles burned, their flames unnaturally still. A new note lay in the center, written in Ethan's jagged script, "The sanctum awaits. Bring her, or they take you both." Mark's heart pounded. Sarah was in danger, and he was running out of time. He searched the room, his flashlight catching a seam in the concrete wall. Pressing it, he heard a click and a panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel. The key symbols matched those carved into the stone. This was the inner sanctum. Mark hesitated. The scratching now a deafening roar in his ears. A whisper followed. "Enter, or lose her." Steeling himself, he stepped inside. The tunnel descended. The walls damp and etched with more symbols. At its end was a circular chamber, its floor inlaid with a mosaic of a coiled serpent. In the center stood an altar, and on it, a single candle flickered beside a photo of Sarah, her eyes scratched out. Mark's stomach lurched. Above the altar, a rusted lockbox was embedded in the wall, its keyhole matching the lost key's design. Ethan had been here. Footsteps echoed behind him. Mark spun, crowbar raised, to find Clara, the superintendent, her face ashen. "I tried to warn you," she said, her voice trembling. "Ethan came back an hour ago. He's got the key, and he's bringing her down here." Mark's blood ran cold. "Sarah?" Clara nodded. "I heard him in the lobby, muttering about finishing the pact. I called the cops, but they won't get here in time." Mark's phone buzzed. A video call from Ethan's number. He answered, and Ethan's face filled the screen, his eyes wild. Behind him, Sarah was gagged, tied to a chair in what looked like the warehouse. "You found the sanctum," Ethan said, grinning. "Good. Bring yourself there by midnight, or she's theirs." The call cut off, leaving Mark staring at a black screen. He turned to Clara. "Show me another way out of here." She led him through a service tunnel to the street, where Lena was waiting in her car. "I tracked Ethan's phone," Lena said. "He's back at the warehouse, but something's off. The signal keeps glitching, like he's moving between locations." Mark's mind raced. Was Ethan baiting him, or was the sanctum somehow connected to the warehouse? They sped to the south side, the city a blur. At the warehouse it was silent. No chanting, no figures. Inside, Sarah was alone, still tied, tears streaming down her face. Mark cut her free, but as they turned to leave, the doors slammed shut. Ethan's voice echoed from nowhere. "You can't run from the Watchers." Shadows writhed in the corners, and the air grew heavy, the scratching now inside Mark's skull. Lena drew her gun, scanning the dark. "This isn't just Ethan," she whispered. "Something's here." A figure emerged. Ethan, holding the key, his smile manic. "The sanctum's open," he said. "The pact needs one more." He lunged at Sarah, but Mark tackled him, the key skittering across the floor. The shadows surged, a deafening hum shaking the walls. Lena fired, hitting Ethan's shoulder. He screamed but laughed, crawling toward the key. "They'll take you all," he roared. Police sirens wailed outside, and the shadows retreated. Mark grabbed the key and dragged Sarah out, Lena covering them. Ethan vanished in the chaos, but the key burned in Mark's hand, its symbols glowing faintly. Back at the apartment, Sarah collapsed, sobbing. "He said I'd never be free," she whispered. Mark held her, but his eyes were on the key. The scratching hadn't stopped. The key burned in Mark's hand, its symbols pulsing like a heartbeat. The Chicago dawn crept through the apartment windows, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe in the corners. Sarah sat on the couch, her eyes hollow, whispering, "They're still here." The scratching in the walls had become a low hum, a constant reminder of the nightmare they couldn't escape. Mark, 38, felt the weight of the past week. Sarah's betrayal, Ethan's sinister plot, and the Watchers, those shadowy entities tied to the building's cursed history. The key, etched with ancient symbols, was their last hope to end this. Mark's phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Ethan's in custody. Cops found him hiding in a motel, raving about Watchers. No key on him. Stay safe." Relief mixed with dread. Ethan was gone, but the key's glow and the hum in the walls told Mark the danger wasn't over. Sarah's confession replayed in his mind. Ethan had lured her with promises of power, claiming the Watchers could grant wishes. She'd been a pawn, but her betrayal still stung. Could he trust her now? "We need to go back to the sanctum," Mark said, gripping the key. Sarah's eyes widened. "No, Mark, please. They'll take us." But he was done running. The inner sanctum, hidden beneath their building, was where this started and where it would end. He called Lena, who arrived with a duffel bag of gear. Flashlights, a recorder, and a police scanner. "If we're doing this," she said, "we document everything. No more disappearing evidence." The basement was colder than ever, the air thick with the scent of decay. The steel door to the ritual room stood ajar, the chalk circle inside glowing faintly. The tunnel to the sanctum loomed like a throat ready to swallow them. Sarah clung to Mark, trembling, but he pushed forward, the key's heat guiding him. Lena followed, her gun drawn, her face set. "If those shadows show up, we're not fighting them," she warned. "We get proof and get out." The sanctum's circular chamber was unchanged, the serpent mosaic, the altar, the lockbox in the wall. The key fit perfectly, and with a click, the box opened, revealing a small, black stone etched with the same symbols. The hum grew deafening, and shadows flickered at the edges of the room. "Mark, don't touch it," Sarah pleaded, but he grabbed the stone, its surface ice-cold yet burning. A voice whispered in his mind, "Complete the pact, or all is lost." Lena's recorder crackled, capturing the hum. "This is real," she muttered, aiming her flashlight at the walls where shadows moved like living ink. Mark's vision blurred, memories flashing, Sarah's laughter, Ethan's smile, the ledger's cryptic warnings. The stone pulsed, and the shadows surged, forming a circle around them. "They want the pact sealed," Sarah sobbed. "Ethan said it needs a sacrifice." Mark's heart raced. Sacrifice? He remembered the ledger's words, "One must fall." Was it him, Sarah, or something else? The stone's heat intensified, and the whispers grew louder. "Choose." Lena shouted, "Mark, destroy it." But before he could, a figure stumbled into the chamber. Clara, the superintendent, her face bloodied. "They're coming," she gasped. Ethan lied. "The Watchers don't serve him, they serve the stone." Clara collapsed, clutching a crumpled note. "Break the stone, break the pact." Mark hesitated, the shadows closing in. Sarah grabbed his arm. "Do it, Mark. For us." He raised the stone, ready to smash it, when Ethan's voice echoed, "You can't stop them." Mark spun, but Ethan wasn't there, only his voice, carried by the shadows. The stone burned hotter, and Mark's arm trembled. Was this a trick? Lena fired her gun at the ceiling, the sound jarring the shadows back. "Now, Mark," she yelled. He slammed the stone against the altar, and it shattered, releasing a blinding light. The hum turned to a scream, and the shadows dissolved, the air clearing. The key in Mark's hand crumbled to dust. Silence fell, heavy and final. The sanctum was just a room now, the altar cracked, the symbols faded. They stumbled out, Clara leaning on Lena. Police swarmed the building, alerted by Lena's scanner. The cops found no trace of the shadows or the stone, but Clara's testimony and Lena's recordings were enough to keep Ethan locked up. He was charged with stalking, kidnapping, and assault, his ravings about Watchers dismissed as insanity. The building's dark history was buried again, chalked up to urban legend. Mark and Sarah moved to a new apartment in Evanston, trying to rebuild. Sarah sought therapy, grappling with her guilt, while Mark wrestled with trust. The scratching stopped, but the scars remained, literal ones on his hand from the stone and emotional ones from Sarah's betrayal. Lena kept digging, uncovering more about Victor Grayson's cult, but the sanctum stayed sealed, its secrets locked away. One night, Mark found a package at their new doorstep, a grainy photo of the sanctum taken from an impossible angle. On the back, in Ethan's handwriting, "They're not gone." Mark burned it, refusing to let fear win. He and Sarah faced the truth, sought help, and moved forward. Ethan faced justice, his schemes exposed, but the Watchers' whispers lingered in Mark's dreams, a reminder that some doors, once open, never fully close.